It's time to get down and actually get right back up again, because we're talking about cascading style sheets as they relate to layout. You say, well, haven't we been evolving through this, Andy? Didn't we start with a simple page and learn how to make an HTML document from scratch? Didn't we work with text in an uncontained page? Didn't we then begin adding images and everything's uncontained? Didn't we then add cascading style sheets as they relate to formatting? So if we are actually evolving through design, wouldn't the next thing be to, use a table? Well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and really I don't. I don't want to offend anybody. But if you can get away from them, get away from tables for layout. Div statements, that's what we're doing. Div for division. They used to be called layers, actually. But div statements are better, they're tighter, they load faster, you have much more control over them. And if you do a lot of table layout, which I did in the years past, I love these because they're so much better to work with. And if you can, this is where you want to be. We will talk about tables in terms of layout, because there still are one or two sites that I must use tables to work in because that's how they host it. And so I still do. But when I can, this is where I want to be. Here we go. Let's talk about two things that I really like about working with div statements. One is their positioning ability. I can put things where I want them to be by using divs, like a specific div for a heading and one for the body. And if I want to, and you can change this, they don't move, they stick right to that page, just like you're reading it off a piece of paper. I do like that. Now you can do that with tables. However, you can't do this with tables. Divs take us into the third dimension using stacking order. We've never been able to achieve a three-dimensional aspect to our pages. We can now do that with div statements. And what's the use of that? Well, you could stack images, kind of like you see div 1, 2, 3, give them a different look. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to do that. When we work in design, we are working with something called the box model. And that's kind of easy to understand. We're drawing things inside of a box. The box's position and control is what gives it its power. A couple of terms. Margin, of course, that's the area that goes around the box, and that's kind of a push-off area, kind of stay away from me. And that will affect other elements as they interact with your element, this one box here. Border, of course, does not have to be black and solid. It can be just about anything you want. The padding is on the inside of the box, and that can be controlled by you. And, of course, the content. But content can be anything. It can be graphics, it can be text, and again, that's controlled by CSS. We've already talked about that in the previous two chapters. And it's very important to understand that you're applying that same information in those chapters to these divs. A couple of things about positioning. There are actually 5 different ways we position. The first one is called static. In static positioning, you're drawing the box, and where the box ends up is where it is. Okay, there's no positioning things. You can't actually influence it by changing positioning numbers. It's stuck where you draw it, and that's fine. That's a good one. Relative is actually relative to the top and left positions. They're adjustable. So we can adjust how far from the top and the left the box is. And of course, the content may influence the right and the bottom. Inherit. I can have a div or a box inside of a box. And what that means basically is it will inherit the properties of that parent. Parent, of course, being the box that I put this into. All the features and styles will be inherited if you use that option. Absolute basically means that we can position the box relative to its container. Now think about it this way. I've got a div, a box, and it's 50 pixels from the top of the browser window, 50 from the top. I put another box inside of that one. I use the absolute positioning, and I say position that box 50. Well, actually it would be 100 because it's going to be 50 from the box, not from the actual browser window. So it's position relative to container. And the final one is fixed. What fixed does is position is relative to the page. So in other words, if you say 50, no matter where it is, it's going to be 50 from the top of the page. Those are the options we do for positioning. Div statements are amazing in how you can control the work. Tables, if you don't have to use them, you never will again for layout. We still use tables. Okay, we still use them for a lot of stuff for tabular data, but this is where you want to go. So let's get started.